Mhm.
Hi, so nice to meet you. Nice to
Nice to
see you
see you,
again.
Mira.
I just have a couple of questions
Sure.
about your career. It's progressed in so many different ways, but what initially sparked your interest in acting, and how did that passion develop over time?
Really good question. When I was a child, I wanted to be a veterinarian, an animal doctor. I was obsessed with animals. That was from kindergarten, I would say, till about fifth grade. All I did was read James Herriot's books, All Creatures Great and Small, All Things Bright and Beautiful. I was obsessed with animals. I wanted to be an animal doctor, a vet. And then I started to grow up and I started to get interested in other things. And I wanted to get really involved in politics. I thought about running for president. I had a big ego. And so then I was like, wait a minute, how can I do all of these things? Be a vet, be president, do. And I was like, I know I can be an actor. So I get to try everything. And so being an actor for me was a way of not having to pick one career. Because I could then embody all of those careers through the art of acting. And then I just became completely focused on acting because I was like, this way I don't have to choose. I can really dedicate myself to the art of acting and I get to be the president, a veterinarian, a philosopher, a poet, whatever I want to be, because I'm stepping into the shoes of all the characters that are those things. So that's why I really wanted to be an actor.
Oh, that's super cool. I've never thought about it that way. Um,
Yeah, it hit me. I was like, this is the answer. I don't have to choose.
you sort of touched upon this, but when you said veterinarian, but did you have any other interests that you were also considering, aside from a veterinarian or an actor, or was it just black and
Or
white?
president. Don't
Yeah.
forget President,
Yes.
Mira. Which now we're getting close to having a woman in the office, and
Yes, so close.
I can feel it. I can feel it. It's coming. Not once I decided to be an actor, I really fully committed to that from like fifth grade through graduate school. Um, but post, like in my later adult life, I thought, oh, another career I could have done in addition to acting. I would have liked to have gone to graduate school for set design and theatrical design. I really love the design aspect of theater, doing sets and costumes. I would have loved to have gone to school for that too. So I would have been able to do both. That's another career I thought, oh, that would be something I could keep doing.
What was the college admissions process when you were looking for schools to get an undergraduate degree? And were there like special schools you applied to, and were they looking for anything specific?
Good question. And the answer is really short for me because I did not apply to undergraduate school for theater. Um, I did all of those special auditions and applications for graduate school for theater. Undergrad, I just applied for regular academic liberal arts college. And the reason I did that was because I had an acting teacher when I was 13, probably the most important or the acting teacher who had the most influence on me in terms of my seriousness with acting. I was 13. I spent the summer in Oxford, England, doing a theater program, which I don't think exists anymore. It was called Enrichment at Oxford. And I lived at Pembroke College, and all the other kids in the program were older than me. I was definitely the youngest. I think I was just done with eighth grade. Everyone else was junior or senior in high school. And I said to my acting teacher, his name is, I think he's still alive, Don Winslow. Um, I said, I really want to do this. Like, what do I do? Like, I'm serious. Like he sort of what you're doing in this thing, for kids. I was like, tell me, what do I do? We didn't have, videos and Zoom. And he said, whatever you do, don't major in theater when you go to college. And I was like, what? I was like, aren't I supposed to major in theater? And he was like, to be a good actor, you need to have life experience. You need to know so many other things. You need to be able to draw on life, whether it's history or math or science. You need to know those things so that you can use them to play all the different characters. Back to when I was young and thinking like, I want to be president. I want to be a poet. I want to be this. So I was like, oh my God, that's great advice. Major in anything but theater, do theater, keep acting, but study something else. So you have something to add to your acting to really enrich yourself as an artist. So when I went to college, I tried everything. I did neuroscience, I did philosophy, I did women's studies, And then I fell into art history and I majored in art history, which again was sort of a keyhole into many things. Studying art, but you learn about politics and history and science of the time period, you know? So that was great for me. And I didn't do the specific applications and auditions until graduate school. And I did go to graduate school for theater and acting.
Yeah, well, I've not interviewed any actors, but I didn't know that you were not supposed to go to.
Well, it's not that you're not supposed to. It's just this one teacher said that to me. You
And
know, of course, many people go to undergrad for theater and it works great for them. This teacher said to me, Jordin, you should really just enrich yourself and learn as much as you can about as many things, and that will help you with your acting. I mean, that may not be true for other people, but that's the advice I followed. So I did tons of theater at Oberlin. I went to Oberlin, which has a music conservatory and a great theater program, and now it has a film program. But I graduated with a degree in art history, you know, but I did tons of theater while I was there, and I took acting classes, but I just didn't major in it.
I know that you switched from like stage acting to voice acting. So what sparked this switch?
Truly, it was an economic switch. I love the theater. It is my first love. But it was very challenging to make a living doing just theater when I was doing it. I had a theater company and we were successful for an off-Broadway theater company. But we were just, I wasn't making enough money to pay rent and, you know, do all the things that I wanted to do in life. So I had to branch out for something more commercial, you know, because my theater company was, we did very sort of avant-garde productions of, you know, disco versions of Shakespeare plays, and we did Wagner as a World Wrestling Federation show, and we did, you know, we kept taking classics and twisting them, which was great. I loved it. And I worked with them for 7 or 8 years. And it was wonderful, really like the best creative period of my life. But then I realized I had to make more money to pay my bills. And so I started looking for an agent, and I found an agent, and I did. And then the voiceover thing just kind of branched out of that. And I realized, oh, this is something I can really do well. And it became very lucrative for me, which that was just lucky, you know, because I worked at a restaurant. This was all at the same time. I had my theater company, working as a hostess in a restaurant, teaching. I was a teaching artist in 3 different public schools, doing theater teaching. And then I started doing voiceover auditions. And so all of those things, I was juggling my schedule when I was in my 20s, right after college, after grad school. And then I got the voiceover agent, and I just started to get more and more work, and I could drop the other jobs. And now that's what I do solely, other than teach at East Harlem School. But yeah.
How did your previous acting experiences prepare you for the challenges and rewards of voice acting?
I had a professor in college named Paul Moser who taught me Shakespeare. And I know that most of the commercial copy I read is not Shakespeare, but learning how to analyze text and find operative words and know where the emphasis should be in terms of the words that convey action versus the ones that are small, not important words, really helps me understand how to look at a piece of text, whether the text is well written or not, and see what is important and what should be stressed. So I would say doing classical theater actually prepared me for commercial voiceovers. Weirdly. I mean, sometimes they tell me I'm a little too articulate and a little too, what's the word they use sometimes? Theatrical, I guess. So sometimes I have to tone it down and sound more plebeian.
What were the biggest adjustments that you had to make when shifting from the stage or screen to recording booth?
I guess sort of what I was just saying, like I have to be a little, I don't project as much. Obviously, like in a booth, it's a smaller space. The microphone is right here. So when I talk, it's more like internal. It's less like I'm having a conversation outside, or from, from a stage, you really have to project your voice. So the vocal work is very different. I have nodules on my vocal cords from my years in theater, and I don't have to worry about that in the booth, like, because I'm not going to lose my voice doing voiceovers, because I'm not stressing it. I'm not pushing it. I'm not doing it 8 shows a week, so it's much easier on my voice doing voiceover work, but I have to kind of dial it back. I'm not using my full instrument. The instrument is much smaller. It's like film acting versus stage acting. Stage voice versus voice booth voice is much more intimate.
What advice would you give aspiring young performers hoping to succeed either in the theaters or on stage?
Well, theater is on stage. You mean theaters or in the
Well,
booth, or do you
theaters like
mean,
cinema
oh,
or
film? Okay. Um, I would say, you never know what in your life you're going to use. So my career was a weird one in the sense that, like, I knew I wanted to be an actor. I went to graduate school for theater. I did shows off Broadway in New York for many years. I had a theater company. We had tools in my diary. We had tools, like, it was called Backstage. It was a newspaper, a physical newspaper that you would get, and you would look at the back and see the auditions. And so I would audition, based on listings. Now, and then you audition for a thing and you get it or you don't get it. And I remember the first show I ever did was before graduate school, between college and grad school. It was downtown at a theater called Here. I don't know if Here still exists, on 6th Avenue and Spring Street. And it was just an open call audition. You looked at the newspaper Backstage, you went to the audition, you brought your headshot and your resume, and you tried. And then they would tell you, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have constant content being fed to us, right? So it was much more about, you had to find the people to make content and art with, right? In real life, in real time, face to face. And I would say for today, it's a very different world because everything is digital. Yes, there is theater, and yes, you still have to audition, but many auditions are at home now. A lot of auditions, you have to be able to film yourself. So I would say the key for actors today would be learning how to create your own content, as well as waiting for the good audition to come in. So I didn't have to create my own content coming up. I did with my companies in the room, but I didn't have to create digital content, and I think today you might have to do that. And I don't know how to do that, but I would say it would be another skill to add under, learning how to walk correctly, talk correctly, find your neutral mask, all those things you need for stage, but also learn how to write, learn how to create your own work, because if the work doesn't come to you, you can at least create something on your own. Now we have all these tools where you can make a show at home.
wow. Oh, and last question. Can you share a particularly challenging or transformative moment in your journey that influenced your development as an actor and performer?
Yeah, let's think. So many. I mean, I would say for me, I really knew what kind of theater I wanted to do by the time I got to graduate school. I had done, college theater, musicals, uh, classics, and I started to really hone in college on the fact that I really loved the classics. I loved Shakespeare, and I really also loved avant-garde theater. And by avant-garde, I mean like not traditional. So I had this weird mix where I loved classical writing, but I loved doing things in black box theater, um, not straight narrative. And I started to really explore that. And I wasn't at all looking for financial gain. I wasn't thinking about commercial success. I wasn't thinking about getting an Oscar. I wasn't thinking about going to LA. I really wanted to make art, like real art that happened to be in a live theater space. I wanted to change people's lives. I wanted to explore social justice through theater. you know, in the traditional sort of Greek sense of theater, like theater was a place for the community to meet and reflect back to their citizens what they should be thinking about, what they should be doing. And I wanted to be that mirror for the world, you know? So I was very sort of highfalutin in my ideas of what I should do as a theater artist. But then when I found my theater company in graduate school, it really, that was transformative because they added the comedy element to that, which made it so much less pretentious. And we made these incredible shows, which were classical twists, you know, with either hip hop or opera or Shakespeare. And they were so funny and they were gender bendy. I always played men. It was 4 women in the theater company, and we played all the parts: men, women, magical creatures, whatever it was. And it was like gender bendy classics, and it was so fun. And that was where I sort of found my niche. It was classics with a twist, also social justice minded, but not in your face, and funny, really funny. I loved comedy.
That's so cool. Like, it's such a pleasure to be talking to you today.
Oh, thanks, Mir. I love talking to you.
This has made me like reflect on what I want to do like more as well.
Yeah, and you have time. The thing is, it all kind of comes, and just keep trying everything, keep taking everything in. I mean, I had this weird offshoot path when I did TV for a while, and that was only because I was auditioning as an actor to be the host of the show, and they said, "Oh, do you know anything about interior design?" Now, had I not taken art history in school, and my mother was a interior designer, I wouldn't have even thought I could do the design part. But I was like, actually, I know a lot about design and art. And then I auditioned for that. And then they were like, we want you as the designer. So you never know I mean, the Rubik's Cube may follow you as you become an opera star. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen. Don't forget anything. Keep all the information and all the experiences close to your heart, because you will use all of them.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks, Mir.